Everybody, back again. NFL Fantasy Week 3 Stardom Sit-em Show presented by FlurrySports.org. I'm back this week. I know I'm quite sure Henry and Coach did a fantastic job carrying the show without me last week. I wasn't able to catch it. I was trying to send you guys messages on Slack like the entire time, and I was just in the middle of nowhere with no reception at all. So I meant to say something to give you a little 2 cents to add into the show, and it didn't even send until you guys were off air. So whatever. But I'm sure it was a great show last week. I'm sure you had tons of great takes. I brought a bunch of personal notes tonight, and then of course we will hit Coach's article as well. If you want to follow along with Coach's article, read anything more in depth, you can do so over at FlurrySports.org. Check out Coach's Twitter. They'll all be posted there as well. Henry, Coach, how are you guys doing tonight? Week 3. I know we were chatting a little bit before we got on air here. How's fantasy going in general? You don't have to get deep in the weeds, but I'm in 7 leagues. I think I've got a winning record in 5 of them. So off to a decent start. How about you guys?
Yeah, I'm in 5 leagues, and I'm 9-1. Ironically, the only loss I've had this season came to one of the co-hosts of the show here, and I had to give up Travis Kelce in the Pirate League there to Henry. But other than that, I'm off to a blazing start. DFS, I haven't been hitting as much. I seem to be hitting on some of the wrong stacks so far, but that's changing this week. So,
well, make sure, by the way, if you're not following already, head on over to Twitter and follow FF Pirate League. I believe it's just FF Pirate League. And it's been fun so far. A lot of trash talk between a few different people. I know my brother's getting under a few people's skin. And one of you guys has a chance. Who's playing him again this week?
That would be me.
All right. Henry's got a chance to knock him off. I know he's 2-0. He cut together a pretty harsh, I would say, little 30-second video that just absolutely tore, I think, Hunter apart last week, which was pretty funny. So head on over to at FF Fantasy League, and we're doing some fun stuff over there. Pirate League. If you haven't been following along, head on over there. There's an article explains it all, but it's a very fun concept, and we're trying to make some content out of that as well. But tonight we're talking Stardom, Sit-em. I know a couple takes that you guys had last week. I know Tony Pollard, we're going to get there. I've got a couple names I want to talk about. And then, like I said, we'll highlight Coach's article. But is there anything you guys hit the nail on the head last week, or any big whiffs that you guys had that we should address right away before we dive into tonight?
I don't know, Coach. Did we have any? I feel like I always go to the misses first. I mean, Calvin Ridley caught a touchdown, and I watched that and kind of felt a little worse about the way I went on that trade there. But wow, last week feels like a long time ago.
Yeah, I mean, if not, it's just, I mean, what were you going to say, Coach?
Yeah, I know my from the article, Myles Gaskin didn't perform like I had thought he would do better. Big hit. I did say Mike Evans was going to score. He got 2. Henry, that trade offer was such a close trade offer. What was it? It was Calvin Ridley and Sterling Shepard, was it?
Yes, for Amari Cooper
and Brandon
Cooks. Yes, yep. And I went the Cooks route, and here he goes off, but then Taylor gets hurt, and you watch Calvin Ridley put one in the end zone in your eye hole for the 5 minutes that you watch Falcons Buccaneers on Sunday, and you're like, oh wow. But yeah, and Sterling Shepard had a nice game, obviously Thursday too, the night before we went. So that might have been the closest trade we've ever gotten in the year and a few weeks here doing this show for sure.
Yeah, that was one where that we kind of had a split on that, but we both said, either way, it's pretty tough to decide, one way or the other. It was a tough call.
So the reason I kind of asked was because I know week 1 we hit I think pretty much every question we answered, in the best way possible. We hit a couple names that really outperformed what their projections were going to be. So I was just wondering if you guys kept that rolling in week 2 or not. We do have a couple questions right away, which we can address those right off the bat. Again, we encourage you, ask as many questions as you'd like. If we go the whole hour answering questions, that's totally fine with us. You said Deontay is out. Is that Deontay Johnson? Because I have him as questionable right now. But we'll start with the defense question. He said Panthers defense versus Texans or Broncos defense versus the Jets. I don't think Zach Wilson's going to come out and throw 4 more interceptions, but I think he's very prone to at least, 1 interception. Haven't scored too many points. The Broncos defense is very, very good under a defensive head coach. Whereas I think the Texans, even though it was a short week, I think they might have thrown something together where they're not going to make Davis Mills push the ball down the field too much or really have a chance for a ton of turnovers. So you might pick up some points because the Texans don't score too many points against the Panthers. But I think your better value is the Broncos. I mean, they're a better defense overall, at least on paper. And you probably have a chance for at least, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 times the turnovers, given what we've seen out of the Jets the first 2 weeks. So I like the Broncos between those 2 options. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I would also go Broncos between the 2. It's kind of funny because in my 5 leagues that I have, I either have the Broncos defense or I have the Panthers defense. So it's I actually have them 1-2 this week. I think they both have great matchups. It's going to be one of those 2 is going to score a defensive touchdown, and that's probably going to be the tiebreaker between them. But I tend to agree. I think the Texans are going to come out. They've got 3 running backs. They're going to try and pound it, keep the pressure off Davis Mills. Whereas I think we've seen the Jets, let Zach Wilson let it rip. So, yeah, I think the Broncos would be my pick too.
I think if the Texans don't fumble, unless Davis Mills makes a really, really bad throw on an opportunity that they give him, I don't really see where they're going to turn the ball over. Whereas the Jets, I mean, it could happen at any moment. We've got our resident Jet fan here. Would you like to comment, Henry?
I think I'd like to put a paper bag over my head first after last week, but it's Broncos for me. The Panthers, interesting fact here, Football Outsiders DVOA, they're number 1 in total defense, but number 1 individually against both the run and the pass. Now, I know it's only been 2 weeks, but that is adjusted metrics. You play who's in front of you, right? They've had a decent schedule playing the Jets and Jameis Winston, but it's the Broncos. They're home. I think I kind of could see, Jake, kind of what you said, where maybe they have a little game plan for Davis Mills to be Charlie check down here tonight. And also, this Panthers defense is still young. Are they that good yet? We don't know. And maybe Davis Mills shocks the world. Who knows? Garbage time.
I did see a stat that former rookie, just in general, QBs that made their start, first start ever on Thursday Night Football, are 5-0 against the spread, I believe was the stat. So I don't know, take that for what it's worth. The last bunch of them, though, I believe were, a little bit higher caliber than Davis Mills, maybe. Baker Mayfield was in there. I believe, did Sam Darnold start on Thursday Night Football? Maybe not, but there was a few names that were way up the board compared to Davis Mills. But so yeah, I think we're in agreement there. Broncos. So if Deontay Johnson is a name, by the way, I was going to bring up anyway. So as we address this question, I want to kind of have that walk into we got to talk about the Steelers as a whole. The Big Ben situation. There's 3 prominent Steelers receivers people are going to want to wonder about. Plus, how does it affect Naji Harris? So we'll get to that next. Right now, though, Dante wants to know if Deontay Johnson is out. This is a standard flex league, so there's a lot of names here, so try and follow. Tyson versus the Lions, Cooks versus the Panthers, Edmonds versus the Jags, Marvin Jones versus the Cardinals, or Sterling Shepard versus the Falcons. My immediate reaction would be Edmonds versus the Jags. Hasn't Edmonds have had 2 double-digit weeks so far, and the Jags have not been good, have allowed a lot of points. So that's my gut reaction. Henry, what would you say?
I I don't know that I love any of the options. I think Brandon Cooks, I'm out on him. I did an underdog fantasy article for the Thursday night football game. I don't think he goes over on the receiving yardage prop. And at the same time, I actually like Davis Mills to go over his passing yardage prop. Now, underdog didn't have that, but at sportsbooks, it's like 211. So 215 in that neighborhood. Like, you can back your way, I feel like, into that, and you don't have to have a great game. So not really excited about Brandon Cooks, though. I think the tight ends there could be more involved in Houston. Jacksonville's not it for me. I'd probably be looking Sterling Shepard. I like what I've seen there. I think he's the go-to guy in that offense. Now, does that change after Kenny Galladay got a little, shall we say, frisky on the sideline late in that game last week? Maybe. But, yeah, I think Daniel Jones is going to stick with his familiar target there. And obviously Atlanta's defense is nothing really to sneeze at after 2 weeks. So I'll go Sterling Shepard.
Yeah, I totally overlooked Sterling Shepard as he's put up almost 40 fantasy points already through 2 weeks. Whereas, Edmonds pretty darn good as well, 27 through 2 weeks. So definitely not bad either. But yeah, totally overlooked Sterling Shepard there. And he is playing Atlanta, who allows 700 passing yards a game, it feels like. So you might as well go. Coach, would you go outside of those two guys, or is it kind of whichever one of those you like best? I don't really see how the other guys stack up compared to either one of those two options.
Yeah, Cooks for me is a scratch. Actually, in the article, he's one of my sits. Don't like Davis Mills out there. Love his production so far, but I don't think he sustains that tonight. Actually, three of these guys are actually starts in my article this week. So that's kind of I did have Sterling Shepard, I did have Chase Edmonds, and I did have Tyson Williams all as starts. For me, though, I would go Shepard, and then I would say Edmonds is second, and I would go Williams third. Marvin Jones, I think, would be fourth. So, yeah, I would go – to me, it would be Shepard, and I think that would be – based on his role thus far, I think he's the best play of those five.
Yeah, so again, pretty much in agreement across the board there. But if you feel really strongly about one of the other guys, chime in again. Let us know. Maybe we'll hear an argument for it. But I think Shepard seems to be the play there, unless you like Edmonds better. But, I mean, Shepard against Atlanta, what more could you ask for right there? Trevor Lawrence or Sam Darnold? I mean, Trevor Lawrence hasn't given me any reason to plug him in as a starting QB at all. So Sam Darnold is a pretty clear choice for me there. Any disagreements, or this one's pretty easy, huh?
Yeah, Sam Darnold for me as well.
I will be fading Urban Meyer until the end of time. I don't care how good the Jaguars are under him.
Until he goes to USC.
I still want to see him quit in week 9. And if he took the USC job after walking out on the team in week 9 because of heart problems, I mean, goodbye.
Dude, but like a year or two later, like nobody would care at all. Like he'd just be, everybody in USC would love him, and he'd be recruiting machine, and he'd be back. So that one's pretty easy. Michael Pittman, Terry McLaurin, or Rondale Moore. He could start 2 of the 3. So who's the odd man out, Coach?
So I would go with, for me, Terry McLaurin is the class of that group. I would say he's every week starter material. Between Pittman and Moore, I would lean. It's tough. We got Moore versus the Jaguars, and we got Pittman versus the Titans. I think between those two, I would lean. I'd probably lean Moore. I think I like Moore a little bit more.
Ha.
More.
So, Henry, you have probably had a chance to ponder this while Coach was surfing through some things there. What's your 2 cents here? Odd man out. I like Terry McLaurin even with – I'm big on Taylor Heineke. Head on over to flurrysports.org. You can read my article. I'm about to submit an update with his even more impressive numbers compared to when I wrote that after week 1. But I like McLaurin. Where do you sit with this question between these 3, Henry?
Yeah, so for me, I think in a way it might actually come down to the status of Carson Wentz. Now, he hasn't practiced. He didn't practice again today, but no boots on either ankle. I don't know. Has a player ever sprained both ankles on the same
and
play
that's
in
tough
the
to
same
come
game?
back from one. Like, I don't know. If it's bad enough to take you out after you played 58 minutes with the game on the line, like, and you sprained both your ankles, I don't know how you come back like 6 days later or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, if anybody is capable of shooting you up with some pain meds, I think it's the National Football League.
True.
I'm monitoring Wentz here because if he's in there, I want Michael Pittman. I've been a Pittman believer. I think last week was a coming out party. We finally got it out of him, a big day. I mean, the talent is there, the athleticism is there, the size is literally there. He has all the makings to be a top-notch NFL receiver. It's just taken a while, and it's a shame that Wentz got hurt because I would love to see more of that Wentz-Pittman connection this week against a Titans pass defense that is not very good. If Wentz is out and it's Jacob Eason, even though he only played like 45% of Arizona's offensive snaps last week, I think I got to go with Rondale Moore. I forget what the stat was, but Rondale Moore has actually been very good as a rookie. And I can't even remember what we were measuring or where he ranked in the stat. There was something I saw on Twitter, though, earlier this week, and I was like, Rondale Moore's the real deal here. So, and it's more than just returning kicks already. Like, he's making an impact in this offense. Obviously, Jacksonville's defense is terrible, but he is the wide receiver 4 there in terms of usage and snaps behind, obviously, Hopkins, but A.J. Green and Christian Kirk are ahead of them, ahead of him as well. So I think if Wentz is in there, it's got to be Pittman. If Wentz is out, that's where I really start looking at more, I think, for me.
If Wentz is out, by the way, I cannot get enough of the Titans -5.5. I love that line if Wentz is out.
That line is literally what makes me feel like Wentz is going to be a go. Yeah. Because what are we doing with books having the line that short if
5.5
freaking Eason? Like,
yeah.
And that's why I'm like, okay.
And Tennessee just
knows something.
Like, they put a hell of a game together last week, and like, so you're starting like Eason looked horrible in those last couple minutes, and it's his first start ever against a team that just got right last week, and Derrick Henry had like 200 yards and 3 touchdowns. Like, and I only got to cover 5.5. I love that bet. But that's a different show. Coach, Henry gave us a lot of thoughts there. How do you decipher this again after looking at it? Who's your final 2?
Yeah, so good point. I was just going under the assumption that Wentz is not playing this week. When I don't see how he plays, but certainly if he does play, I mean, I think Pittman definitely has more target volume. But I was going off the assumption he wasn't going to, so for me that was why I went with Moore. Also, I typically am not one for throwing on the bets. I usually stick to the DFS as my lane, but that sounds like a pretty unbelievable play with the -5.5.
Yeah.
And I figured you were, operating as, okay, Wentz is not going to be available, but like Jake actually brought it full circle. I wasn't going to bring up betting at all because we could go on and on, but yeah, that line is like, okay, he doesn't have walking boots.
It does lean that he's playing. Yeah.
What's going on here?
Yeah, it does lean that he's playing, and it definitely could move. Like, it could move. I don't know. At least maybe up to a point if he is ruled out and like a bunch of money comes in on Sunday. But I love it at 5.5. It's been at 5.5 since they came out late Sunday night, I believe, or Monday, and it hasn't like moved at all. So
the headline on NFL. Yeah, I just was Googling it. The headline is Carson Wentz is throwing the kitchen sink at treatment. So sounds like he's pulling out all the stops to play. This must be one he's circled on the calendar here.
So even with a banged up Carson Wentz who rushed to get himself back on the field, I still love 5.5. I love that bet. Probably might be my best bet of the weekend. We'll see how things shake out here over the next couple of days. Back to Dante's original question. He said he wants to start Shepard, but Evan Ingram might come back and steal Shepard's, some target share or whatever. Look, I'm not worried. 40 points, 41 points through 2 weeks, 19 targets, over 200 yards the first couple of weeks. Like maybe 1 or 2 extra passes go Evan Ingram's way, but it's not like you're going to, he had 7 receptions the first week, 9 the next week. I'd be shocked if he had like 2 this week. So I'm not too concerned at all.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think Shepard has established himself as the number one for now. And as long as he's healthy, I think you've got a solid wide receiver 2 for fantasy.
I actually, this is kind of funny. I actually had Kyle Rudolph in my tight end streamers article this week because yesterday I don't make mistakes when I read. I don't think quite this egregious that said Evan Ingram was definitely a no-go for week 3. Then I look and he's limited participant in practice again today. So, okay, what are we doing here with the Giants at tight end? Even if Ingram comes back, it's I'm not worried about Shepard. I don't think at all there. So I think he will be just fine. And it is the Atlanta pass defense too. Somebody else asked about Dak Prescott. Obviously the Cowboys are facing the Eagles on Monday night, or Daniel Jones in that Falcons-Giants game. I know the Eagles defense has been okay, and I know we've been talking about how it's kind of a nice matchup for the Giants in this spot, but Dak Prescott all day there, and I will dare one of you two to come at me on that one. I don't think you will, but
so Daniel Jones right now, the number 4 overall quarterback through 2 weeks. He's put up 50 points. He's playing a real bad Atlanta team, but I like Dak Prescott and Jalen Hurts to really kind of duel it out in prime time. A big division win on the line, and Dak, as far as fantasy wise, was horrible last week. So I can imagine he's going to. I think he had like 7 points or 7.5 points. So I would imagine he's going to have a bit of a bounce back week. Whereas Daniel Jones, 21 points, then 30 points. Maybe he kind of evens out, finds himself in like the 16 to 18 point category. I would lean towards Dak Prescott this week, even if Daniel Jones does come out, and play decently and puts up numbers against Atlanta. I still like Dak Prescott. You do always have the chance of a rushing touchdown, though, with Daniel Jones, so that kind of equals out with Dak as well. But I just like the idea of a shootout with Jalen Hurts in prime time. Give me Dak in that situation.
Yeah, and for me, my choice is always it always comes down to this for me. What choice, if I make the wrong choice, can I live with? Which one's the one that am I not going to be kicking myself for? And for me, Dak Prescott's an every week starter unless you are in a 4-man league or you have something quarterback. And but for me, I think if you start Daniel Jones and Dak Prescott goes off, I think you're kicking yourself. If you start Dak Prescott and Daniel Jones outperforms him, you made the right move. But I would go Dak Prescott, and I would consider him a locked-in every week starter.
Well, here's something that's very telling, and I'm glad that you ended your thoughts with that exact sentence, because Daniel Jones right now, the 4th overall quarterback through 2 weeks, like I just said, he's put up multiple touchdowns, 50 points through 2 weeks. He's only rostered in 37.9% of ESPN leagues. Less than 38% of leagues even have Daniel Jones rostered, and he's the number 4 scoring quarterback right now. So that kind of tells you like people's thoughts. And I just looked it up, and Dak Prescott is rostered in 99% of leagues. So, and he's the 17th ranked at the position. So it kind of just shows you the bias. And of course, like Dak is the obvious. It's like you said, Coach. It's the right play. It's the guy that you can live with. But I mean, if Daniel Jones can keep, he's got a fumbling problem. He's misses checkdowns here and there. But fantasy wise, if he can keep these like mid-20s performances up, right now he's sitting as a top 5 guy, and 38% of leagues have him even on a roster, let alone starting.
Jake, I asked Coach the question on last week's show, is Daniel Jones a dual threat quarterback now after what he did against Washington? Because, of course, we were on Friday. Like, this guy can run. So
he's always been able to run. He's super fast.
It's just last year he tripped and fell when he was going to have his coming out party there on Thursday Night Football. But also, just want to throw this out there, the real Zach Bruner, not the fake Zach Bruner, who is on the show with you right now, said in the chat that it looks like Brett Hundley may start for the Colts on Sunday against the Titans. He was just signed. He believes Carson Wentz is likely to be out. So in that case, pulling a quarterback in off the streets, might have to go Rondale Moore there, going back to that earlier situation. But yeah.
Again, give me the 5.5. Brett Hundley? Yeah. Give me the 5.5. I'm a bit confused by this question. Allison, thank you for asking it, but says, should I start Ezekiel Elliott versus the Chargers or Nick Chubb versus Houston? I don't believe the Cowboys already played the Chargers, and Nick Chubb is a defensive player, and he also doesn't play Houston. So I'm a little confused by that question, but we can try and decipher it.
She's looking at week 2 matchups. That's what it was. So Cowboys would be against the Eagles this week in week 3, and then Browns are playing
either way.
The Bears. Nick Chubb's a running back, by the way.
Yeah, excuse me. I was thinking Bradley. Yeah, the question had me all mixed up in my mind. So I do apologize for that. Nick Chubb is a running back, but he does not play Houston. Ezekiel Elliott does not play the Chargers. So, Ezekiel Elliott versus the Eagles, or the Browns versus – who do the Browns play this week?
The Bears.
Nick Chubb versus the Bears. All right. So we got things straightened out here. I already kind of know how Henry's going to answer this, I believe, because aren't you fading? You're fading Zeke. That's another insta fade for you, isn't it? Zeke Elliott, overrated, great rookie year. We know. I'm with you there, though. I mean, for me right now, Chubb is a dependable running back, week in and week out, finds the end zone, and he's a big part of the offense. So, I mean, he's not in the same world as Ezekiel Elliott right now.
Yeah, Coach, you want to go first on this one? I need to look at.
I would also second the Nick Chubb vote. That would be they both have just looking at the matchups here. The Bears actually it's going to be a little tougher matchup there, and the Eagles against the run. But I would take Nick Chubb all day. I think Nick Chubb is the only thing he doesn't do much as far as a receiver, but and you always have Kareem Hunt to take a little bit off the upside there. But I think with the Zeke, you're looking at the same thing with Tony Pollard taking some of his upside away now too, and possibly going to take his job in a couple of weeks here too. So I would definitely go Chubb of those two.
I mean, 20. I mean, a big difference in points, like 15, 16 in point differential through 2 weeks. That's pretty big. Henry, your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm with Coach. It's Nick Chubb here. And so Eagles played Atlanta in week 1, and they played a good run offense in the 49ers last week. Eagles defense is blown past my expectations for them coming into the year, both of the first 2 weeks. But Atlanta's not really a running team, and adjusted run defense, Philly's only 18th after 2 weeks, despite allowing 17 total points. And I mean, if you want to say they faced a solid, one of the top run offenses in San Francisco, I would balance that out by saying they faced a poor rushing offense in Atlanta the week prior. 18th adjusted, not loving it. 6th adjusted against the pass. So Eagles a bit of a better passing defense there. And I mean, Nick Chubb, I don't think, you don't love it going against the Bears here, but the Browns are going to have to establish the run in this game, because if the game is entirely on Baker Mayfield's arm, without Jarvis Landry, I think Cleveland is in big trouble. So
OBJ is possibly back this week.
Yeah, not thrilled. I think I'd rather have a healthy Landry than OBJ possibly back at this point. But yeah, I mean, I just don't trust Baker Mayfield to go out and actually win a game. Now, I think the Browns' run game is good enough that they will establish it, and Chubb should be able to find the end zone, I would think, or at least have enough work and yards to be a solid start. And then, I mean, I guess I kind of have to ride with my own ship until it either reaches the new land or somehow sinks at this point. But, roll the tape, week 1 of this very own start-sit show. Tony Pollard's better than Ezekiel Elliott. Outscored him in fantasy week 1 and week 2. So here to hear first. And they were both top 10 backs last week, and Tony Pollard still outscored him. So I got to pat myself on the back every now and then.
Well,
these two are sick of it,
should.
because I already said it in the chat this week.
As you should. And I think you were all over Tony Pollard last season too. So it's nothing new out of Henry, just predicting things years before they come true. We're in the presence of greatness. So and at the end of the day, look, Nick Chubb is the 4th ranked running back in the NFL right now, fantasy wise, through 2 weeks. Are you gonna sit him down? He's ranked number 4 for Zeke, who hasn't been consistent for 2 years now. 3, this is the 3rd year going into it that he really hasn't been super fantasy reliable. So you're gonna sit the 4th overall ranked guy. Good luck. I mean, I'm taking Chubb every time. Was about to move forward towards my show notes here, because we've just been answering questions off the bat, which, again, we love and we will keep doing. But we got another one here. Deandre Swift, Brandon Cooks, or Rondale Moore. We talked quite a bit about Moore and Cooks already earlier. Swift is a guy that has performed through 2 weeks as well. And even though his team has been in kind of like a comeback mode for basically the entirety of the second half of both of their first 2 games, he still found a way to contribute, and he's doing it alongside Williams, who has been, a decent surprise fantasy-wise as well. They're playing Baltimore this week. Maybe you don't love the matchup, but Deandre Swift, again, he's the 6th ranked overall running back for me, so I'm going to tend to give a guy like that the nod over some other fringe guys who really are going to be boom or bust, not week-to-week dependable guys. What do you guys think? Coach, we'll start with you.
Yeah, so I already said I'm off Cooks with Davis Mills at quarterback. So then you're looking at choice between Moore and Swift. And between the two of them, Swift actually has more targets at this point. And in a game that Detroit will probably be trailing, he'll get a lot of checkdowns. I think Swift makes for a great play this week. I don't even think it's particularly close. I would start Swift out of those 3 and feel pretty confident on that one.
Yeah, almost 200 all-purpose yards to go along with 12 catches, a receiving touchdown. I mean, pretty decent first couple of weeks out of Deandre Swift. Henry?
Yeah, I wouldn't overthink this one at all. I think they probably could have even used him a little bit more last week against the Packers based on how the second half went. But we already talked about the Brandon Cooks situation. Rondale Moore still, again, he's the 4th guy in terms of snaps. And I know there is some adjusted stat out there where Rondale Moore is killing it. And I can't remember what that stat was for the life of me that I saw earlier this week, but he's not yet. Deandre Swift.
Easy enough. Thank you again for the questions. Keep them coming. we'll probably be on for, I know the game is about 5 minutes away, so we'll be on for a little while yet. A couple of things that I do want to hit, though. I asked Tanner this on Monday because we did a stream together and haven't talked to him in a while, so I wanted to get his thoughts. But how are you guys approaching Antonio Gibson? He was a keeper in one of my keeper leagues, the only keeper league I'm in. Pretty big disappointment so far. J.D. McKissic blew him out of the water last week. Poached a touchdown from him, which I guess he kind of earned on that drive anyway, so maybe it wasn't so much of a poach. But Antonio Gibson, I believe, back-to-back single-digit weeks. Am I crazy for maybe wanting to start Melvin Gordon over Gibson this week? And what's the future of Gibson? Like, is there a ray of hope for me? Are things going to get better out in Washington?
So just looking at Gibson's numbers, the first couple of weeks here, he finished with 12 PPR points week 1 and 9 last week. So he's right on the fringe of RB2 week 1 and then 31 overall week 2. Now this week he goes to Buffalo.
He's been projected like 14, 15, 16 points every week. So it's been, pretty underwhelming.
Yeah, underwhelming. He's going to the Bills this week. I think you got to hold him. I do think that it's a little alarming to me that when the game script went and the Redskins had to come from behind and in 2-minute drills, McKissic was kind of back in the role of last year. The talk during the offseason was that Gibson was going to start getting more of that work, and then he was going to be more of a true 3-down back, and we're not really seeing that. I do think you have to hold. He does have a tough stretch here at Buffalo. He gets at Atlanta, and that's a team that can be diced through the air. So I do think that the numbers are a little misleading. Their run defense is showing actually good right now, but I don't think that's really the case. And then he does play at New Orleans, and that's a tougher run defense. But I do think once he comes out of that stretch, the problem is if I think that he becomes a little bit more where if the Redskins are favored or in a good spot to win, you feel more confident starting him. And if they're dogs going into a game, you might have to think twice.
I was kind of assuming that there was going to be some fantasy owners out there who are like starting him because they feel like he's a guy that they are going to regret having on their bench if he does go off. But like, is he in that? Has he entered the realm of like a guy who should be on your bench until he does it for a week or two? Like, are there better starting options out there? Like I proposed Melvin Gordon this week against the Jets over Antonio Gibson. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I was pulling up numbers here while Coach was talking. Snap wise, so we can start there, right? We're looking at J.D. McKissic last week taking a touchdown away, taking some PPR work away from Antonio Gibson. Coming into the year, some reports out of Redskins camp were, okay, Antonio Gibson's going to be the next Christian McCaffrey. We saw McCaffrey do it with Ron Rivera. They want to have him be the same thing. Definitely a disappointment here these first couple of weeks. Yeah, not so far. Snap-wise, though, for Washington, Antonio Gibson, a little over 60% of offensive snaps he played last week. McKissic down at 43%. Moving up to the Broncos, Melvin Gordon, who we kind of thought would be the lead guy, at least to start the year, with rookie Javonte Williams there. Melvin Gordon, 59% of snaps. Javonte Williams on the field for 40%. Each of them was on the field, however, for 15 run snaps. That's been a little bit more even than we think, and I think Gordon's big performance in week 1 kind of helps skew the perception there a little bit. He didn't do anything special last week. As someone who had to start him in a flex spot in a 16-teamer, I can tell you firsthand. Adjusted run defense, and again, it's only been 2 weeks, but adjusted definitely helps, get a better feel of things. The Bills, who Washington plays this week, that was their weakness last year, right? They couldn't stop the run. We saw even the Chiefs, Clyde Edwards-Helaire ran all over them in that regular season meeting. That's the one game for some reason I remember. Through 2 weeks, adjusted against the run, 7 is Buffalo. So they seem to have cleaned things up there. look at what they did against Naji Harris. Now the Dolphins game last week kind of feels like a throwaway to me, but still. And the Jets last year, the run defense was actually their strength defensively. Now the defensive front is still their strength, but they're 26th adjusted against the run, and actually a lot better against the pass, which makes no sense to me, given the young corners they have there. So, I mean, looking at that, you could make a case for Gordon if you're really angry at what Gibson has done to you and you just don't want to be slighted, I guess, again, or you want to slight him and throw him on your bench. But I'm not doing that yet. It's going to take another 2 to 3 weeks, I think, of flex caliber numbers. And I would even argue, the 12, what'd you say, Coach, 12 and a half, like PPR points in week 1. I mean, we can do a lot worse, I think, than that. Talking about a low end RB2 there, given how RBs were last week. So I would be riding with Gibson, I think, again this week. And just knowing that Williams is going to take more of that role, don't know how that game's going to go, could get out of hand. I like the matchup better for Gordon, but I can't do it. As a Gibson,
I feel kind of backed into a corner starting Gibson as well, because I did keep him, so I forgo my very first pick to keep this guy, and it's I'm going to bench him in week 3. I don't know, but I'll have to look back at it again. I had talked myself into Melvin Gordon, but now you got me on the edge. So.
Yeah. And same thing, based on the ADP, you essentially built, if you took Antonio Gibson, he was one of your top 2 picks. So you essentially built a team around him. And I know, we talk all the time, you have to make changes, right? You can stream guys in. Don't be afraid to bench in favor of matchups, whatever. The matchup and the situation don't equate to something, I think, this week, looking at these two, Gordon and Gibson, where it's okay, I'm ready to just give up on him now.
Yeah.
And I don't know, Coach, you can disagree with that just angle or thought process, but what if he goes off? What if he goes out and has 3 touchdowns? Then you're sitting there kicking yourself, because I don't think Gordon's doing that.
Kicking yourself big time.
Yeah, I also, of the two, would prefer Gibson compared to Gordon this week. I also have him in one of my leagues, and it was an auction league, and I did think that he was going to have an expanded role. I am still rolling him out there this week. And I do think against Atlanta next week will be a get-right spot for him where he'll and this matchup's tough this week, and I get that, but I do agree that the backfield in Denver it's complete 50-50 as far as, as number of touches. I think they're right equal there. Maybe one has one more than the other. Did you have that number, Henry? Was it spot on equal between Javonte and Melvin Gordon?
So I had the snaps, and in terms of run snaps that they were on the field for last week, they were both for 15. Gordon was on the field for 26 passing snaps versus only 13 for Williams. So he doubled him up in pass snaps, but run snaps, it was perfectly equal.
All right. Well, Gibson.
Yeah, as far as touches too, I mean, it's pretty split. I think Gordon has one more touch. I just looked on the season than Williams. So
yeah,
I just want to put a plea out there to ESPN. Maybe it's just the fact that we're still using that platform, but in a keeper league, we have a rule where you can only keep somebody that you drafted in the 3rd round or after, so that it's not all the same top-notch dudes getting kept every year, because that's just kind of lame. We did that at first, and then we realized this would be a better way to do it. But ESPN doesn't give you an option to give the extra draft pick later in the draft. So it's we can only keep a guy of 3rd round value or higher, but if you don't keep anybody, then you get an extra pick right at the beginning of the draft. So it really doesn't equal out, and we're trying to encourage people to keep it as just part, because we want it to be a keeper league, but it really makes no sense. 2 of my buddies didn't keep anybody, and one of them ended up with, I think, Derrick Henry and Dalvin Cook on his team, because he had 2 out of the first 5 picks. So just dumb. I'm making a plea right now to ESPN. If you're going to have a keeper league, allow the keeper pick to be placed later in the draft.
I got one other comment just on the Broncos situation specifically. Coach, I don't know where you got your touch numbers from. I knew it was close, just based off of box scores between the two here. But Zach's got like all kinds of stuff up. So if you guys are following along watching the show, flurrysports.org, if you go to the NFL section in the menu bar up at the top of the homepage, it'll drop down NFL stats. You can click on it. There's like 6 different categories. And if you go into the fantasy usage stats, I mean, like, this is literally a gold mine here. If you're playing DFS, season long, whatever, touches per game through 2 games, Williams and Gordon averaging 14.5, identical. Total touches.
Yeah, Zach posts a lot of stuff like that. So you guys definitely out there, use it to your advantage. Use it to educate yourselves while you're making your own fantasy decisions. And of course, if there's, guys that we didn't get to, but you can kind of take our analysis and how did Henry just weigh those guys against each other and what did he look at there, and do it on your own and hopefully come up with the right decisions more often than not. So yeah, you can find all of that over on flurrysports.org. There's 2 more real quick things that I want to talk about, and then I'll leave the floor open to you guys if you want to touch on anything else, or otherwise we'll be pushing an hour and the game started already. So we can hop off whenever. My only other thoughts, I teased it right at the beginning of the show. Big Ben, I was all over the Steelers. I thought they were going to be really good. They look good in week 1. Now he's got a pec injury. And lingering injuries for Big Ben, I don't know. It's like he uses it to like play through them and play better, but then at the same time he's playing worse. And like it's the very beginning of the season, so you don't want to hurt Big Ben yet. Obviously, this affects Smith-Schuster, Claypool, Deontay Johnson, and Naji Harris. I'll kind of just throw one big question out there. Are you avoiding any of these guys now while Big Ben is nursing this injury? Deontay Johnson has come up lame in both week 1 and week 2 already, has missed time during both of those games. Does that concern you at all? And then is this a positive or negative for Najee Harris that Big Ben may or may not be able to sling the ball around quite as good as what we're used to here, at least through the first couple of weeks? Ben was looking pretty good. Steelers wide receivers as a whole looking okay. Deontay Johnson, obviously the best out of all of them. But this probably affects a lot of people, and a lot of people in the same leagues. We're talking 5 key players here fantasy-wise. Give me some general thoughts, Henry. We can start with you. What are we doing here piece by piece with the Pittsburgh Steelers offense?
Okay, sorry. I was pulling some things up to make at least one of my arguments here. So Pittsburgh Steelers offense, I'm kind of facing this dilemma myself in aforementioned 16-team league this week because I have Johnson, and I went after running backs really hard in the draft. And so we got to start 3 receivers. I'm looking at potentially having to start either Darnell Mooney if he goes, or Quez Watkins if Johnson's out. So a bit of a rough spot there. That being said, I love Quez Watkins, but Naji Harris is the part I was going to zone in on, and then maybe we can have Coach kind of talk more about the passing situation. I'm worried about Naji Harris, whether Ben Roethlisberger plays or not this week, because the Bengals' run defense is actually good. Week 1 held Dalvin Cook to 61 yards on 20 carries, 3.0 average. Week 2 held David Montgomery to 61 yards on 20 carries, 3.0 average. Number 2 in adjusted run defense per Football Outsiders. This is a sneaky tough matchup for Harris, and I'm still not sure I'm totally convinced the Steelers' offensive line is, it's been 2 weeks, and one of them was terrible against Buffalo, right? So have they corrected the run blocking issues from a year ago? And then if you got an injured quarterback back there too, this could be a problem for Harris this week. Obviously, you're still starting him. I think kind of going back to the Antonio Gibson conversation, based on where you drafted him, he's going to be in your lineup. But don't have your hopes up, I think, either way for him this week.
I wonder what kind of money you could get on Najee Harris, exactly 61 rushing yards. See if they can make it 3 weeks in a row.
I would on 20 carries, I would die.
Yeah, that's I don't know, but it'd be worth it if you were hitting like a 250-1 bet or something like that.
Yeah. But the fact that those are two star running backs in the NFL, right? And they held both of them to that. I mean, I know we're only 2 weeks in, but and the adjusted numbers, they don't lie no matter how far in we are. So,
and I
good
think Harris,
question mark Bengals run deep.
Oh, and I think Harris too. You bring up some good points this week, but I think throughout the entire season, he could be a guy where it's some real big weeks, some real down weeks. I wrote an article after week 1, which you can still go check out. But I said I think he's going to be pretty touchdown dependent, and I believe that is going to be the case. Now, that's where, if Big Ben's arm or pec or whatever is giving him some trouble and some, touchdown, some passing opportunities are taken away and given to Harris, maybe that boosts his fantasy outlook just a little bit because, you're going to have more opportunities for touchdowns. Of course, that's good for fantasy. But I think we'll know more within a couple of weeks, depending on how quickly Big Ben heals, the severity of his if his pass attempts get cut in half, receivers are in trouble. Naji Harris probably getting a little bump there. We aren't going to know for a couple of weeks, though. Coach, are there any 3 of these receivers that you're for sure staying away from, or are these all guys that at least you're going to throw on a flex? Obviously, Deontay Johnson, way better than a flex, but just injury after injury after injury, it seems like he always fights through it, but you'd like to have him 100% once.
Yeah, and I just want to pile on Naji Harris a little bit more because while you were talking here, I pulled it up. The Steelers as a team have rushed for 114 yards through 2 games. Oof. For comparison's sake.
And I think Big Ben had like a 9 or 10 yard scamper in there, I think, in week 1 too. So
yeah, and for comparison, the Baltimore Ravens as a team have rushed for 440 yards through 2 games, which would explain why, I'm all about Tyson Williams here too going forward. But as far as Naji Harris is concerned, I do agree touchdown dependent. I do think if they start to use him in that Le'Veon Bell role more, where they just start to check it down to him, keep feeding him, he'll get some PPR points, kind of get that. Juju Smith-Schuster, I think, is kind of a beneficiary of Deontay Johnson's health issues and also Ben Roethlisberger's health issues. I think Chase Claypool, I think, is the biggest loser of the 3 because he has the deeper targets.
The deeper threat, yeah.
And I just don't see Ben Roethlisberger holding on for that. I think he wants to get rid of it quick so he's not taking more shots. So Juju Smith-Schuster to me is actually a guy that I think is, if Deontay Johnson's missing any time, I think Juju is a direct beneficiary there. Yeah. I like both those 2 going forward. Naji Harris, I was pretty high on going into the year. I thought, we're going to see this Le'Veon Bell type role where it's going to be a lot of PPR points. And I guess everyone was talking about how bad this line was. And, I always think Carolina's line is not that good either. But Christian McCaffrey overcomes that. You usually think that some of these backs are able to overcome some of that. But Pittsburgh's line is not getting it done. And I think we're looking at kind of Christian McCaffrey just being a special guy unto himself. And Naji Harris, I don't think he is going to be able to overcome that. Might be a guy who, after a big game, you might want to look at floating him out there and seeing if you're not in a dynasty league or it's not a keeper situation, it's just a single season league, you might want to kind of float him out there and see if you can get anything for him, because I'm kind of souring on him in this season as a whole.
Yeah, I don't think that's a bad idea at all. There's a couple different running backs that potentially could be on the market here early. Maybe there's a Zeke floating out there. Maybe there's Naji Harris. So who knows? If you're willing to wheel and deal, maybe get yourself a running back at a good price. Last thing that I wanted to throw out there. Claypool last year, just a touchdown machine. But like you said, Big Ben was a little healthier. He was willing to stay in the pocket a little bit more to let the play develop and maybe take a hit once in a while. And I think with a pec injury going into week 3, I don't think he's going to be standing there, waiting that extra second with the defender barreling down on him. So I'm totally with you. I think Claypool is maybe the big loser out of that group, and I think he has the lowest fantasy total out of anybody that we talked about there involved with the Steelers as well through these first 2 weeks. Very last thing I wanted to talk about, and like I said, if you guys want to toss anything out there before we hop off, Rob Gronkowski, number 1 tight end through 2 weeks. Everybody undervalued him. He was sitting there forever in a bunch of my drafts. I took him last year just because it was a fun thing, have Gronk on your team, whatever. And he went off, during the mid part of the season for a good number of touchdowns. But I honestly didn't even really consider him in a bunch of leagues this year. I just figured he'd be a role player, a touchdown here and there or whatever. And he's got 4 touchdowns and 60 points through 2 weeks. I mean, just absolutely nuts. But Kittle, we talked about him a little bit before we hop on. He's the last point that I kind of wanted to hit. Kittle's got 9.5 points through 2 weeks. Is that is Kittle a guy that just let me phrase it this way. Are we done seeing Kittle go in the top 3 rounds of fantasy drafts from pretty much here on out?
Real quick, I'm going to touch on the Gronk bit.
Yeah,
he is on pace for 34 touchdowns at this point. So just wanted
not bad,
averaging 2 per game. So definitely. And in DFS, he's still going for $3,000 cheaper than Kelsey on DraftKings this week. Saw that. That was I'm going to be throwing him in a lot of lineups, I think. Especially if Antonio Brown might be out too. On George Kittle, we were kind of starting to talk a little bit on him before the stream here, and I'm starting to kind of view Kyle Shanahan as a guy that I just really don't want any pieces of the 49ers offense, just because it seems like there's a lot of shuffling around, a lot of chess being played with the various roles on a week-to-week basis. I'm holding Trey Sermon in a league. I've got Trey Lance in a league. I've been off Kittle ever since he burned me in a fantasy football playoff league a couple of years ago. I mentioned there was a game where it was a great matchup for him, and he just stayed in and blocked all game. Great team player, great guy. Not sure if he's a fantasy 3 tight end. I saw a lot of places had him ranked as a top 2 tight end this year. I was all over Waller over him for sure. But kind of going forward at tight end, guys I would rather own than him. I would rather own Hawkinson. I would rather own Gronk. I would rather own Pitts.
Noah Fant. I do want to toot my own horn, but nobody wanted Noah Fant in our auction league. I was getting cocked off. I believe the quote was, I said, Noah Fant for $1, steal the draft. And I think it was Luke, said you can't steal something nobody wants. Noah Fant, the 5th overall ranked tight end, part of the Broncos covering both weeks so far here through this young NFL season. Noah Fant is good. He's going to be good for years. I love him. I got him on basically every single team this year. So I did want to throw that out there, toot my own horn. I made 2 bets, I believe, 2 bets with 2 separate people that Noah Fant was going to end up as a top 5 tight end this year. Right now, sitting at number 5. We only got 15 games to go.
And he and Kittle both have the same alma mater too, if I'm not mistaken. They're both Iowa alums, right?
I believe so.
I was just going to say, go Hawks.
Yeah,
I believe so. And by the way, I was wrong on Kittle. I accidentally flashed my eyes over to his standard points. He does have 17.5 points on the season, but that is still only the 12th ranked tight end, whereas in standard, he's 14th ranked. So he's only two slots higher in PPR. But anyway,
my turn to talk.
Yeah, I was going to say that pretty much was my only thoughts. I said I was going to talk a bunch of tight end here this year because it's just kind of a position that baffles me. If I didn't have Noah Fant, I don't know what I'd be doing this year. There's just a bunch of guys that are just nobodies, man. 4 to 6 points every week and without any relief. So that's pretty much all I got. Like I said, if you guys want to toss anything out, we're like at an hour, like exactly flat here. So any final thoughts? Anybody you guys want to throw out there? Otherwise, we can sign off. And I don't know how many people are choosing to listen to us over Monday Night Football, anyways. Thursday Night Football.
Well, I'll go. If you have Justin Fields and you don't have an elite starting quarterback, or if you're looking to go cheap in DFS this week, I like Justin Fields. I think a lot of people are going to say, hold off, wait and see. He looked rough last week. Last year on our live stream and in the article, I was touting Jalen Hurts. I'm like, get him in the lineup. You're going to get that 60 rushing yards, 50-50 shot at a touchdown. That's where you start. And then everything is bonus off of that. And so I like Justin Fields this week, and I've got some decisions to make in a couple leagues where I got him in 2 quarterback leagues. So,
all right, beautiful. Coach's little nugget there is Justin Fields. Henry, what do you got for the people?
Yeah, I got a few things, and then I got really distracted by the whole Iowa tight end connection deal there, and so yeah, shout out Grace down in Daytona Beach. Go Hawks. Coach, I wanted to ask you about Justin Fields and Baker Mayfield because I saw Fields as a start in your article and I saw Mayfield as a sit in your article. I dogged Mayfield earlier in this show. So, and I also, the Browns were a team I put on upset alert and had an interesting conversation with the real Zach Bruner about that game earlier this week. I actually quoted him on my article, so that was a lot of fun, the upset alert article over on Flurry Sports. Why are we looking to sit Mayfield, though? I think the Bears defense, the run defense, I think, is pretty stout. The pass defense, not what it used to be. So is it a case for you of we're looking at Mayfield having too much on his plate in this game potentially, or are you just is it something else? And then I've got one other running back I have to pick a little argument with you on, but go ahead.
Yeah. So real quick, as far as Baker Mayfield, a few things I don't like. We talked about Landry being out this week. Landry has been Mayfield's security blanket. We talked about Odell Beckham Jr. probably going to be back. It seems like him and Mayfield have never really had the best rapport. I just see this being a game where I think Cleveland's going to come in. They already run the ball 53% of the time, over 53% of the time, which is downright rugby league style. And I think you're going to see Chubb, Kareem Hunt both get all the carries they can handle. Mayfield is QB 20 on the season. I don't see this being a matchup where he's going to break that mold. And so, yeah, I would start Justin Fields over Baker Mayfield. If that was a decision I would make, I would head with Fields 100% of the time.
Awesome. I can try and pull up Zach's quote on this game while you're talking about this running back. But okay, Devin Singletary, he makes the column as a sit, and I know we didn't go all the way through the columns this week, but I got to ask you about some of these guys anyway. So you talked about how he's off to a productive start in fantasy. RB11 last week, right? Not a ton of carries either week. And Zach Moss came back and had 2 touchdowns last week by doing like little else. Singletary only had 1. So obviously goal line work's an issue maybe there in Buffalo. Here's my thing. Singletary's averaged over 6 yards a carry both weeks so far. And I don't know that I consider either Pittsburgh or Miami to be a slouch defensively. I don't consider Washington to be a slouch defensively either, but it hasn't been good so far. And coming into this game, you mentioned, what was it? They give up a low number of fantasy points to the position. Adjusted efficiency defensively against the run, they're 21st through 2 games. Now, I know Ron Rivera has been very vocal. We're going to get this corrected. And I think they will get it corrected. I'm not quite sure why the total in this game has gone up 4 whole points, to be honest with you. But I don't know. Are we that off of Singletary, like given what we've seen out of Washington and him so far?
I myself am not a Singletary guy. I don't think that he is averaging 6.2 yards a carry. I did write that he cracked off a 46-yarder that kind of skews that and brings the numbers more in line with his with his career average. He's actually I think he's at 4.2 or something like that if you take that off, which is kind of right in line with his career numbers. Here's my thing with Singletary. You're getting 12 carries. You're not getting goal line work typically. It's going to be Josh Allen's the goal line back there. So you're really looking at limited touches, limited ceiling, playing against the football team defense. I don't see him in the top 24 this week. I could see, if you're in a pinch, you might have to start him. But I would prefer not to, and I don't think he'll finish RB24 or above this week. So
that's fair enough. And then Zach's quote on this game, the Bears-Browns game that we talked about there with the quarterbacks. Fields is going back to Ohio. Browns and Kevin Stefanski play the Vikings in week 4. This thing writes itself. He already bet the Bears outright because he knows this shit is scripted. That was a paraphrase quote. But... So I feel like we're all on board. Now I'm nervous that it's just going to go the complete other way. But I like the stuff on Singletary too. Like that, you got me with the long run. I think I'm a Singletary guy just because coming out of FAU, he played for Lane Kiffin, who is now coach of Ole Miss. So, but yeah, I definitely hear you. But I've been impressed with him so far. So, and I'm curious to see how quickly the Washington defense gets it turned around. So I guess we'll see.
Yeah, and as far as running backs, the one guy that I did write, Tyson Williams, I love him this week. I think he's going to have a big week. And he is the 1A there, and Baltimore runs it, 57% of the time. So I think you're looking at a big game out of him against the Lions. And I think Latavius Murray will even do in a pinch if you need a flex. So.
All right. We did get one more question. So we'll address that quickly here before we hop off. Thank you, Brooks. I do want to let you know, though, Jarvis Landry is on IR, so we can take him out of the equation here. So essentially, his question boils down to he needs a wide receiver 3, Brandon Iuke or T. Higgins. Obviously, Jarvis Landry, not really an option. Again, this one, pretty straightforward. Brandon Iuke has had 2 targets, 1.6 points through 2 weeks. T. Higgins has put up like 28 points or something like that. I could see a bit of a offensive, like, duke it out a bit between, a Bengals team that is finally good and has everybody healthy and like wants to prove something against the Steelers, and then a Steelers team who has the ability to score and probably will score on the Bengals as well. So I like T. Higgins. Iuke has seen no action, and outside of Deebo Samuel, I don't really want a piece of anybody on the 49ers right now. So T. Higgins is pretty easy choice for me here. You guys have any quick thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I would go T, unless Kyle Shanahan has a vendetta against you, then you could see Brandon Iuke catching 8 passes this week as he becomes the primary focus there. But
I don't know. 6 yards on the season. 6 yards. Yeah.
Shanahanigans. That's what they are. Yep. T. Higgins for me all day.
I missed that. I missed that so much. It's back.
Shenanigans.
Henry, are you thinking anything outside of here? I mean, I can't imagine you have that much faith in Iuke that you would start him over T. Higgins in this spot, would you?
Having a total brain fart on who do the 49ers play this week?
The Packers.
Green Bay.
Thank you. Okay, let me look at one more thing.
I mean,
You
the
guys
thing
both went
with
with Sorry, go ahead. You can go.
I was just going to say the thing with Higgins is like Jamar Chase has put up, good numbers. Joe Mixon is getting his, and he's still put up, he's got 10 catches for over 100 yards and a touchdown each week. Like, I'm having a hard time in, what should be a good division, like I said, battle, shootout. I'm having a hard time taking a guy who's seen 2 passes come his way all season so far over a guy who has had 15 targets, reeled 10 of them in, 2 of them for touchdowns.
Yeah, so you guys both went with T. Higgins. The numbers through 2 weeks are definitely that direction, but I'm going to make a case for Iuke just to be a pain. Week 1, we have to throw that out, right? Because he had an injury coming into the season, and I think he was on the field for maybe like 2 snaps. If that was a non-factor, Deebo Samuel goes off against the Lions in a game where you can argue Iuke probably would have gone off too, just given the opponent. Last week, only 1 catch, only 2 targets, but they're still working him back in. 54% of the 49ers' offensive snaps, Iuke was on the field. So I would have to go and look more at the injury reports. And just like try and get an update. Is he going to progress to maybe like even a larger workload? Like, are we still on track here with him coming back from the injury? I would rather have a receiver up against the Packers than I would the Steelers for sure. I will say that much. If Iuke is still trending in the right direction injury-wise, I think you could make a case. Would it go against all conventional wisdom and logic out of what we saw the first 2 weeks? Yes. But would it go against ADP and how people were kind of expecting Iuke to be the 1A along with Samuel, a receiver in that offense coming into the year? And I'm almost positive Iuke went at least 3 rounds ahead of Higgins, or close to it, maybe 2 rounds in the ADP. It wouldn't go against that. So it just depends on, how soon you think Iuke's going to be there. That's my case pretty much.
Well, we will definitely put a pin in that one. Like Henry said, conventional wisdom says T. Higgins. If you feel like taking a risk, you think Brandon Iuke is going to be back, is going to be a big part of that offensive attack against, pretty weak Packers defensive backfield in general. I mean, Stokes looked decent when he finally got some playing time against the Lions, but you'd be looking at potentially his first start. And then Jari Alexander's only one guy, and he's going to be on, probably somebody that's not named T. Higgins. So I still like T. Higgins, but we'll see. Like I said, put a pin in it, and we'll address this one again next week. Brooks, come back. Let us know who you decided. Let us know how it ended up. And I think that's going to be it for us. Hour 15, so lots and lots of wisdom imparted via the different YouTube and Twitter channels here. So we're going to let you go. Enjoy the rest of the Thursday night game. I'm sitting here sulking because I really wanted to take Sam Darnold anytime touchdown score plus 550 tonight. I just had some gut feeling. I was looking at it all day. I'm not in a legal state, so I couldn't make the bet. And first touchdown of the game, Sam Darnold rushing touchdown. So I'm out I probably would have put $10 on it, so a good $55 tonight. But hey, I've got the Panthers spread too, so whatever. It doesn't sting too badly. So anyway, Coach Henry, thank you for your time. Coach, make sure you tweet out those articles if you have not already. If you haven't seen the articles, go check out Coach's Twitter. He's going to make sure they're there, or otherwise you can find anything and everything written content-wise over at flurrysports.org. Henry, when does the Burnt Rubber Racing Pod come out?
It'll go up tomorrow.
All right.
Got some editing work to do. It was a whole show. I don't know if you guys saw the drama from the NASCAR race last week, but there was a chicken shit move late as described by one of the drivers. So I came with 9 facts about chicken feces this week, and
very nice.
Zach just about cried. So
that is can't miss.
So if you go back and watch the video version, I'm Zach Bruner.
I was just gonna say, if you can't wait for that compelling piece of audio right there, if you can't wait another 24 hours, just head back, same channels here, and they just finished streaming, about hour and a half ago, whatever. So 9 facts about chicken poop. I like it. That is where we will end. Have a fantastic night, everybody. Good luck on your bets this weekend. Maybe I'll be hopping back on the airwaves to chat a little bit, some against the spread stuff. Who knows? We'll see. I work the next 3 days, so I'm going to do what I can. But anyway, thanks for your time tonight, boys. Good luck, everybody. And we'll talk to you next time. This has been Week 3 Stardom Sit-'em presented by FlurrySports.org.
Have a good night, guys.
Thanks, guys.